Atela has been in the convening space, and he's the main convener of the ARIN network, proposing to bring dialogue to bridge the gap between what is and what should be, and also the director when it comes to the Climate Resilient Economies Program at African Center for Technology Studies. So to bring Atela on board is ideally to have him try to bring the conversation when you're thinking about dialogue. What is the role of dialogue in bridging the gap when it comes to decoloniality? And how does that work in challenging power?
So yeah, really very interesting discussions. And I think this is the bottom of things, just trying to unpack this element around decoloniality. Now, and looking at some of the key things, so the key questions that the speakers have raised, which are really very genuine. If we are talking about decoloniality or decolonizing methods, really, I think the questions that are being raised are like, really, why are we talking about it? Why is it an important thing? And where are we going with it? Are we talking about it because it's nice to talk about? Are we talking about it because it's a timely thing? Or are we talking about it because we want to offer some solutions to, for instance, if you talk about Africa, and those particular questions, I think, have come up very strongly in the panel discussion. And I think moving forward, I just want to reflect a bit on some of those perspectives and sort of also bring some additional questions, which I think could also help us to shape the discussion further as we continue to have this dialogue around decolonizing methods. So when you talk of power within the method sphere, you understand that there are drivers to that. Really, power is not something that exists in some isolation. Power is actually carried along certain spaces, and these spaces includes include interests of different groups. Of course, we have the private sector, the practitioners have just talked very passionately here. The researchers have also given their perspectives. Again, the narratives that basically carry this power, this particular, the power of, the power relations around methodology. There are certain narratives that are really very strong to sort of justify a certain methodological orientation, why certain methodological, perspectives are more important for certain context, and why donors would actually agree with certain methodological approaches, or why even researchers ourselves, including both senior researchers and junior researchers, why they would think that certain methodological perspectives are the most critical, while others could be relatively not very critical to solve certain situation or to meet certain objectives. Just imagine when you're writing your PhD thesis, certainly you have to go through a lot of justification. Why is this method very important here? Why is this one not important? And why are we, sort of scoping out and preferring certain methodology? So there is narratives that really, carries that element of power around the methods. But of course, these narratives, again, as very clearly demonstrated in the pathways approach, they are actually carried by a number of actor networks. These are expert groups, these are institutions that come together to profile certain methodological agendas and all that. So all these things need to be well understood. But again, it is not just that. The manifestation of the power relations, when you come to the methodological sphere, basically is very clear in terms of the various ways in which we operate, the various systems within which this particular methodological elements are actually embedded. And these are, elements to do with partnerships. Within partnerships, our partnerships are structured, our partnerships are sort of anchored, and how they sort of define what manner of methods or what choices do they make in terms of certain or particular methodologies. Indeed, there is a lot of disciplines. We have a lot of physical scientists, social scientists, and all these basically normally you will see power around methodologies actually manifesting. So you want to look at this not in terms of just seeing maybe the North being very strong in certain methodologies, and they want to impose that on Africa or in the South. But certainly you can see that even within discipline, even within the South itself, or Kenya itself, look, to take an example of a country or a particular institution or a particular project itself, there are a lot of disciplinary competitions. Which method is more superior? Is it the modeling, which is more stronger? Is it the social science, understanding the policy, the context, the communities, and all that? So those are very important, manifestations that we need to really understand when we talk about power within the realm of methods. But there's politics, there's the ecology, there's the economy, there's the histories and culture, which define the way people think and believe about certain things. And certainly, if you look at that, it defines, again, manifests people's orientation towards certain ways of doing things, certain methodologies, certain ways of extracting information. Matthew's mentioned a very important point, that how do we conceptualize the power in methodology? As a researcher, maybe you've exercised some power over the local communities by being so extractive. Every time you go back with questionnaires, you want to extract more, you call them for discussions, not even the communities alone, but also the stakeholders at certain higher level, always calling people, we have this validation workshop, and giving them your thoughts and all that. When we do that, we certainly are practicing power. So we need to think about this much more broadly. Experience and dominance. We have the seniors versus the juniors, where the seniors feel like perhaps the way we've done this thing over the many years is the way to go. And then, that then closes spaces for some of the innovative sort of new ideas that Laura was talking about to come into space and infiltrate that particular dominance. So there's a lot of things which basically sort of help to manifest the power relations around methodologies. But moving forward, really, looking at these particular ideas and this space that we've talked about, the different drivers and the way they manifest, what is the purpose of decoloniality, which I think is also something which has come out very strongly. Decoloniality in this case does not mean we are going to throw away or throw out all these interests. These interests are very important. That basically structure, methodological perspectives and build momentum around certain approaches. These are very important, and they are the they are the interests which are basically structured the systems that are operating at the moment. So it is not possible to say, okay, we are looking at the coloniality of methods, and we want to now really, throw out all the interests that exist so that we can have, and this relates to the questions that Kennedy was asking, very tangible question, like, why are we decolonizing in the first place? Was it a means to an end or an end to a mean? What is the purpose of this? This is very critical. And I think towards the end, there has been a very strong position that decolonizing the methodological space is about creating safe spaces and opening conversations where everyone's voice counts, both dominant and alternatives across sectors and all that. Certainly, that is not a very easy thing to do. Is quite very complex undertaking that will require us to not only, first of all, understand the political economy of the methodological coloniality. We need to understand how did we, come to the space where we are, such that we start thinking about decolonizing, methods. What are the experiences? What are some of those, power relations? What are some of those actor networks and narratives that really, perpetuate certain methodologies over others? And why is that happening? And who are the people who are behind this? What is the role of different people? What is the role of donors in this? If donors are only, very passionate about certain methodological perspectives, you will realize that then, that brings a very strong network. That's certain, that would, support particular views or particular, passions towards certain methodological elements. So we need to understand the whole spectrum of the political economy. And I think, Joel, as we go through this debate and we are looking at some of the products coming out of this particular debate, including a book, which I think is very critical. How do we embed this kind of also understanding within that book, that we are able to understand this particular, the political economy of coloniality? How has it happened? And what are the spaces for us to bring in the elements around decoloniality? But also we need to ask hard questions. And one of the hard questions that I think has been asked across the panel is that, where are we decolonizing to? And for who? Okay? Where are we decolonizing to and for who? And that also links to what Kennedy asked. Is it a means to an end or an end to a means? Where are we decolonizing to? What is the purpose of this particular debate? Do we want to achieve, what is it that we want to achieve? And who are we targeting? And in case we are saying, okay, the South, from the narrative, or certain groups have not taken their right positioning in terms of methodology, then the other question you will ask, wherever you are decolonizing to, are they ready to receive and manage the decoloniality? Is it possible, for instance, let me take the example of Africa. Are we in a position really to manage the methodological decoloniality that we are advocating for? Do we have systems that we can actually invoke to be able to really say, okay, we want decoloniality, we want the space, we want to be heard, which is good, first step. But then, so what? Are we able to manage that through? Do we have certain things that we need to fix as a system, first of all, before we go into, that element of, looking at how to shift the power relations? Kalicious Juma, in his book entitled Innovation and Its Enemies, he mentioned that the greatest enemies of innovation, or the greatest enemy of innovation, is the status quo. And that is very critical. What is the situation with where we want to decolonize? So that is very critical for us to think about as we continue with this particular debate. Finally, it is a messy discussion. It has a lot of complexities, but certainly we hope that through these particular dialogues, we can create that space where we can really understand the issues without really predetermining what needs to be done and what are the solutions, but really opening up the issues so that we can have a much more strategic engagement toward this particular mission around decoloniality. And I look forward to the STEPS methods here, which is going to span this particular, throughout the year 2021. And within the Africa Research and Impact Network, of course, and the Africa Sustainability Hub, within which we are trying to convene this is our goal. Thank you, Joy.